You're sitting in the pitch black. It is 40,000 years ago, deep in the frozen valleys of what's now southwestern France. Outside your cave, the wind is howling, and the temperature has plummeted far below freezing. Somewhere out there in the dark, a cave hyena laughs. It's a sound that makes your blood run cold because you know exactly what it means. You are being hunted. But you aren't looking at the dark. Your eyes are locked onto a tiny, flickering point of orange light. A single spark catching a dry piece of pine bark. As the flame grows, something strange happens to your body. Your racing heart begins to slow down. The intense muscles in your shoulders relax. The terrifying sounds of the night fade into the background. You are completely paralyzed by the shifting shapes of the fire, staring into it for hours, totally unable to look away. Fast forward to the present day. You're at a backyard bonfire or staring into a living room fireplace. You have a smartphone in your pocket with access to the entirety of human knowledge and infinite entertainment. Yet, you find yourself doing the exact same thing. You stare into the flames. 10 minutes pass. 30 minutes. An hour. You aren't bored. You aren't thinking about your phone. You are completely hypnotized. Why? Why does a simple chemical reaction hold a psychological chokehold over the human brain? Why are we biologically programmed to find fire more captivating than almost anything else on Earth? The answer isn't just that fire is pretty. The truth is much more profound. You are staring into the very thing that rewired your brain, built human civilization, and saved our species from absolute extinction. For millions of years, early hominids treated fire the way every other animal on Earth does, with absolute terror. If a wildfire broke out on the African savanna, our ancestors ran. But around 1.5 million years ago, a massive shift occurred. Archaeological evidence discovered at the Wonderwork Cave in South Africa reveals something miraculous. Deep inside the cave, scientists found the microscopic remains of burned bones and plant ash. This wasn't a wildfire. It was controlled. Our ancestors had done the unthinkable. They had captured a monster. Imagine the absolute bravery it took for an early human to walk up to a burning tree struck by lightning, break off a flaming branch, and bring it back to their family. They didn't just conquer a fear, they unlocked a superpower. Think about your modern evening routine. You come home, flip a switch, turn on the stove, and lock your front door. You feel completely safe. For ancient humans, fire was all of those things wrapped into one. Before fire, the setting sun was a death sentence. Humans have terrible night vision. The moment darkness fell, our ancestors were completely blind, defenseless prey for apex predators like the saber-toothed cat. But a campfire changed the physics of the night. It created a literal dome of safety. Predators, terrified of the light and smoke, stayed outside the perimeter. This brings us to a stunning discovery by anthropologist Polly Wiesner. She spent decades studying the Juhwansi Bushmen of southern Africa, a group with an ancient traditional lifestyle. Wiesner analyzed what people talked about during the day versus what they talked about at night around the campfire. The difference was staggering. During the day, conversations were strict, practical, and stressful. They talked about work, hunting, and tribal conflicts. But at night, around the fire, the atmosphere completely transformed. 81% of the conversations turned into storytelling. They sang, they danced, and they shared deep emotional histories. The fire created a psychological safe zone. It was the birth of human culture. But fire didn't just change our social lives. It physically altered the anatomy of your body. Look at a chimpanzee. They spend up to 6 hours a day doing nothing but chewing tough, raw meat and fibrous plants. Their jaws are massive and their digestive tracts are huge because raw food takes an immense amount of energy to break down. Now, look at yourself. Your jaw is small, your teeth are relatively weak, and your stomach is incredibly efficient. How did we get away with this? We outsourced our digestion to the fire. Harvard evolutionary biologist Richard Wrangham proposed the cooking hypothesis, which completely changed how we view human history. When you cook food, you break down the proteins and collagen, making it incredibly easy for your stomach to absorb nutrients. Suddenly, instead of spending all day chewing, ancient humans could consume massive amounts of calories in just a few minutes. This led to a massive biological trade-off. Because our guts no longer needed to be massive and energy hungry, our bodies redirected all those extra calories straight to our heads. Over a few 100,000 years, the human brain doubled in size. Every time you stare into a fire, you are looking at the kitchen that built your intelligence. Without cooked calories, your complex modern brain literally could not exist. But that still doesn't completely explain the hypnotic trance. Why does looking at it right now, in the 21st century, make us feel so incredibly calm? To find out, evolutionary psychologist Christopher Lynn conducted a brilliant study at the University of Alabama. He placed hundreds of modern adults in front of a video of a campfire, complete with the crackling sounds of wood burning. He measured their blood pressure before, during, and after. The results were undeniable. When people watched the fire with sound, their blood pressure dropped significantly. The longer they watched, the more relaxed they became. But when they watched a fire with no sound, or just a muted picture, their blood pressure didn't change. Lynn concluded that our brains are hardwired with an ancient evolutionary relaxation response. For hundreds of thousands of years, the sight and sound of a crackling fire meant one thing to your ancestors. You are safe. There are no predators near. The tribe is warm. You can let your guard down. When you stare into a fire today, you are triggering a survival mechanism that is hundreds of generations old. Your modern brain, constantly bombarded by emails, notifications, and work stress, suddenly receives an ancient signal telling it that the danger is gone.
Think about how you use a screen today. You scroll through social media or watch a movie, looking for a dopamine hit to keep from being bored. The campfire was humanity's very first television. But unlike a modern screen that overstimulates your brain with fast cuts and bright blue light, a fire does the exact opposite. It provides what psychologists call soft fascination. The movement of a flame is dynamic but predictable. It holds your attention effortlessly, allowing your mind to wander, process memories, and heal from cognitive fatigue. We didn't just use fire, we co-evolved with it. It became our constant companion. It allowed us to migrate out of the warm environments of Africa and conquer the freezing landscapes of Europe and Asia. It allowed us to forge metal, create weapons, and eventually build the engines that power our world today. But this deep connection makes our modern world look incredibly strange. For the vast majority of human history, the campfire was the only source of light after dark. Our internal biological clocks were perfectly synced to the rhythm of the flames. When the fire died down, our bodies produced melatonin and we went to sleep. Today, we have eradicated the darkness. We live under artificial, harsh, fluorescent bulbs and staring into glowing pocket rectangles. We have more light than ever before, yet we are lonelier, more stressed, and more sleep-deprived than any humans to ever walk the earth. We traded the community of the hearth for the isolation of the screen. The next time you find yourself sitting around a fire, completely hypnotized by the dancing flames, don't fight the trance. Don't look at your phone. Let your mind drift. You aren't just wasting time or being bored. You are participating in the oldest ritual in human history. You are sitting exactly where your ancestors sat, feeling exactly what they felt, connected by a thread of light that stretches all the way back to the dawn of humanity.
If you made it this far, you're not just watching. You're the kind of person who wants to know why. Why we're wired this way. Why the past still runs in the background of everything we do. That's exactly what this channel is for. Subscribing costs nothing. It just tells us to keep digging. See you in the next one.